On this episode of Ride XP, I'm finally reviewing the Royal Enfield Himalayan Scram 411. Spoiler alert, I really enjoyed this bike, and I think it's a great, underappreciated all-rounder despite its shortcomings. The first part will be my candid impressions of the bike while riding, while the second part will be a formal review. Feel free to use the timestamps to navigate. With that, sit back and enjoy this Ride XP. Today is June 7, 2023, and in less than a month, on July 2, 2023, my girlfriend and I, we are going to ride the Himalayas. And of course, what better bike to use than, of course, the Royal Enfield Himalayans. So today, for the next few days, I've borrowed the Scram 411 from Royal Enfield Philippines so that I can warm up and also get to know this bike and tell you more about what I think, since a lot of you asked me before what I think about this bike after selling my Himalayan. Alright, so let's rewind to when I got the bike and my first impressions again after getting to ride this bike. It has been a while and I really miss being on such a comfortable bike. Oh my gosh. Even with all the upgrades to my Interceptor, the Scram 411 is just immediately so much more plush and kind of welcoming to ride in the city than the Interceptor. I got a lot more ride XP on different bikes. Now that I have the benefit of that perspective, I can appreciate how smooth the Scram 411 feels. If you've only ridden like the older Himalayans, it really feels much more modern and less clunky than the old Himalayans. The seat is really better than the Himalayan seat as well. Now I have the perspective of like Triumphs and other Yamahas, that I find the Scram 411 more likable than ever. And I'm really excited because this is the first time I'm gonna have a chance to really take it out, not just ride around city streets like what I'm doing now. Here, of course, we've got the black, I think it's blazing black variant of the Scram 411. Great looking bike. As many of you know, this is the Scrambler version of the famous Himalayan 411 adventure bike. Again, quick review. The main difference is this. You've got a 19-inch front wheel with a slightly shorter front fork travel to make it more street friendly, and definitely it makes the bike a lot more agile. It's the big difference. Along with this front, you've got a stripped down clock gauge. You don't have the windscreen anymore, and kind of the Explorer style clocks on the Himalayan 411. And you also don't have the tank guard anymore. And then you have this new and improved single seat instead of the thinner and less plush split seat on the Himalayan. I think this rear monoshock is still the same. It's still that rear adjustable monoshock. And yeah, same engine, same frame. Slightly different handlebars, but still a very wide adventure style, tall and wide handlebar that makes it super easy to control. Some small details, as you see here, we have the foot peg cushions removed, so this is kind of more in off-road mode. And Royal Enfield has actually installed 4 aftermarket auxiliary lights that doesn't come with a bike. This is pretty much exactly the same as the Himalayan. There's your controls for the auxiliary lights. And now let's just take a look at this basic gauge that it borrows, the basic clock that it borrows from the 350s. This is where your tripper navigation would go. We don't have that. All right. So to toggle between the clocks, you just press this button. All right. So there, we've got our trip B, our gear indicator, fuel, trip F, which is the trip meter for when you get low on fuel, odometer, so that's pretty basic. Just have your speedo. You don't have a tachometer, a rev counter, and that's basically it. No switchable ABS on this bike or any other tech. You've just got your full-time ABS and your basic proven Royal Enfield Himalayan 411 DNA. It seems to me that Royal Enfield really mainly markets this as a city bike that can handle some dirt, as an actual scrambler, even though for me that's underselling the bike, because as Ryan F9 said in his definitive and unbeatable review of the Scram 411, this is the only scrambler on the market that's based on an actual adventure bike, making it kind of the best scrambler for going off-road among the competition, even the much more expensive competition, perhaps with the exception of the Triumph Scrambler 1200 XE, which is a totally different class of bike, so it's not even comparable to this. So I'll do some riding with it. I'm not sure how much off-road I'm going to get done because the weather lately has been pretty bad, and it's not, I don't really want to drop the bike, but well, I'll do my best to ride it in a variety of conditions. First up, I'm going to ride through some traffic, then on some nice highway stretches. All right, here we go. That comforting, familiar thump of the Himalayan engine, I have to admit, there's still no substitute for it. And really, coming from the Interceptor, this bike feels so light. Only Royal Enfield riders know. Considering a bike that's nearly 200 kilos at only 400 cc, you would still consider it light. Of course, with that 19-inch front wheel, it really is just so flickable. Check that out, see? Super flickable. I love it. I love this riding position. I really, I've been trying so hard to get this on the Interceptor by using like taller handlebars, but it's just not the same because the distance from the seat to the bars is just much more on the elongated tank of the Interceptor than it is here on the Himalayan. And in adventure bikes in general, you tend to have a shorter reach between the seat and the bars, so even if you do have a taller bar, you're still reaching just a little bit too much for it, even if you sweep it back. The Himalayan 411, no matter what situation it's in, never feels like a quick bike. But the Scram, I think due to changing the gearing, I'm not sure if it's the gearing, the tuning, or both, and the 19-inch front wheel, it feels like a quick street bike. Man, it is significantly easier to keep this bike on a straight line than the Interceptor. I think it's just that lightweight and that bigger front wheel. Can I fit? See, this is what I'm talking about with these wide handlebars. You don't really know. There you go. That was a squeeze. It's also so easy to find neutral on this. I love it. I'm pleasantly surprised at the overall smoothness of the Scram to ride. Like, the throttle isn't very on-off. It's got like a nice gradual ramp, but not like on the Scrambler 900 where it just feels like throttle lag. Again, because this isn't because it is still a cable throttle. It's not a throttle by wire. And it's just so smooth, and the gearbox is great. Better than on my Interceptor, I have to say. It's so easy to find neutral. Just snicks into gear. Overall, just a very enjoyably refined package. Just flowing on Skyway. 60 km/h speed limit. 60 km/h at 5th gear. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. And so comfy. It's time to do some highway filtering. So I think if you buy a Scram in the Philippines and you'd use it to go to work, you will go through a lot of this kind of riding. And I'm happy to report, feels great on the Scram. Again, in situations like this where you don't need the Interceptor's extra power, the Scram's lighter weight and far superior comfort really shine compared to either of the 650s or any of the 3 650s for sure. Okay, now that it's opened up a little and I'm hitting like a Speedo 90 but GPS 80, you quickly feel that the Scram, I mean just like the Himalayan, is starting to get to the edge of its relaxed limit. Anything beyond, I guess, 90, you're already starting to wring the bike's neck. This would be such a good combination commuter and weekend light adventure touring bike. The only thing missing is what's really missing from the Himalayan. It's just that extra bit of pep, that extra bit of fun when you open up the throttle and the bike surges forward. You just don't get that here at any gear, at any RPM. But we know that. And here, so see, when you get to this RPM, you're starting to get a lot more vibes through the hands. Just like the Himalayan, you know, I would describe the Scram as adequate on the highway. And the brakes start to show their limitations when you're trying to slow down from 3-digit speeds. Whoopsie! Okay. Alright. Day 2 with the bike. It's a beautiful morning. No rain in the forecast. It's time for a good old-fashioned blast up the twisties. Let's go. Oh boy, what a beautiful morning. It's one of those Marilaki mornings again. I love this so much. I miss this. And I'm comfortable, yet still agile. This is what I ride for, guys. Experiences like this. And we're not even on the twisties yet. Here's the gateway to the twisties. Woo, surreal, look at that. And there is a bit of chatter from the suspension. So that's really the trade-off you get when you know, have plushness. See, look at how difficult it is for me to overtake this guy. It's not going fast at all. In the daylight, in a high grip environment, that's when I feel that the bike is slow. You can see how relaxed this guy is going, and I just can't overtake him on this uphill. I would have overtaken these guys long ago if I were on the Interceptor. But I just don't want to, you know, be too aggressive. It's not cool. But if you're just gonna do relaxed riding in the twisties, I think it's fine. Well, see, when the road's perfect like that, then you don't feel so much of that chatter and the front and back trying to get away from each other. Trying to corner off-road style, that will be less off-putting. But you can really counter lean on this because, you know, you've got so much ground clearance. My boot touched the ground again. No counter leaning there. That's Devil's Corner. Woohoo! It's time to go home and gather my thoughts about the bike so I can summarize it for you. So I'm home, back in my garage. I've had the machine for 2 days and ridden about 300 kilometers or so, doing everything except real off-roading. I did commuting in heavy traffic, some of it with a backrider, fast flowing twisties in the day, tight technical twisties at night, and both spirited and relaxed riding on national and provincial highways. Now I have a much better idea of what this bike is like, past the spec sheet and my knowledge of the original Himalayan. Many of you asked me in the comments in my video of why I sold my Himalayan if the Scram 411 might have changed my mind. Before these rides, based only on the spec sheet and my brief test ride after its launch last year here in the Philippines, I would have told you no. For the same reasons I sold the Himalayan. It's just a little bit too slow and not fun enough on the road. But after riding this, I don't just like it as I expected to, being a fan of the Himalayan, I love it. The tweaks they made to make it a more road-biased bike, namely the 19-inch front wheel, down from 21 inches, the revisions to the gearing, improvements in smoothness to the throttle, the clutch, and the gearbox, this new, better seat, and of course the restyled front end, all combined to bring almost everything I was missing with the Himalayan I used to own. As I said in my initial review of the Scram, The newfound agility of this bike compared to the Himalayan completely changes its personality. It makes it feel modern and fun instead of kind of old and agricultural when you're riding in traffic, making tight turns, and even when cornering. Of the 400cc and up bikes I've ridden in the past year, it is for me the most effortless to ride, even easier than the lighter KTM 390 Adventure. And I have to mention that I'm glad I only got to this bike now again after my training that I talked about in my previous video that you can watch here. Because the significant increase in my skills and confidence allowed me to appreciate this bike so much more. You see, I used to think that the Himalayan was heavy, but now I find it light, skinny, and effortless to maneuver, even compared to my Interceptor, which is already customized to be a lot lighter. That friendly power and stability that makes the Himalayan easy to ride off-road also makes this easy to control in traffic. Combined with the agility and smoothness, I never found myself lurching forward unintentionally as I sometimes did or still do on my Vespa and my Interceptor, with the only catch being this extra wide handlebar. But I've had to walk back that assessment somewhat because the day after I shot this part, I experienced riding it in extreme traffic around Manila. In that situation, apart from the wide handlebar, I found myself bothered by the heat coming from this air and oil cooled engine. It got hotter than my 650 ever gets, which surprised me. And second, that clutch, it does start to get heavy once you spend significant time in traffic. Third, if you are quite short and or less experienced, you may struggle with the seat height, especially at low speed. But for me, at 5'7", I could easily manage with flat footing my left leg with a significant bend in my knee. Taken all together, over time, it's possible that these would become a real hindrance if you always commute with it at rush hour. I would still rate the Scram as a great commuter, but with those asterisks, so you should try it for yourself. Also, the 195 kilo wet weight of the bike might be an issue when you're moving this around in a tight garage or parking space. Now, if you just want a good-looking, dedicated retro commuter from Royal Enfield, you are better off with the Hunter 350, although you do give up the highway capability. As Ryan F9 pointed out in the definitive review of the Scram at Fort9 on YouTube, what makes the Scram special is that it's the only Scrambler, well, I guess aside from Triumph's Scrambler 1200s, a totally different category, it's the only Scrambler that's not based off a street bike and made into a Scrambler, but off an adventure bike. So it gives a level of off-road capability and touring comfort that you just won't find in other factory-made Scramblers, or my custom Interceptor Scrambler for that matter. We're talking about 200 millimeters ground clearance, which is the best in its class, 190 millimeters travel on the front fork, that's 80 more than the Interceptor, and 180 millimeters travel on the rear monoshock, which is more than double what you get on the dual rear shocks of the Interceptor. If you haven't watched that Fort9 review yet, by the way, you should, because it covers the big thing I wasn't able to test, which is riding off-road. And also because it's a freaking work of art. Furthermore, having tried Triumph's Scrambler 900, I honestly think that this humble little 411 is a superior city to backroad bike that does exactly what it was meant to do. In contrast, the Triumph, you know, it's a beautiful bike, but just for me and how I ride, it's too expensive, too hot, and too heavy to really make sense, at least in this country, because it's hot and our roads, you can't really go that fast. Anyway, all this adds up to a bike that, almost as much as the Himalayan, makes you itch to get on light trails and back roads and fire roads, while also providing the level of comfort that I've spent so much time and money trying to get on my Interceptor and mostly not achieved. But I do really wish it had switchable ABS like the new Himalayans, but I feel like they must have left this out to differentiate the two products. Ergonomics are also still on point for an adventure tourer with these upright, wide, and wide-turning handlebars, along with really good standing ergonomics for my 5'7" height that give me a great grip on the tank with my legs while letting me stand right on top of the bars. And then fuel economy and range are also great. I got 30 kilometers per liter, riding spirited half the time. So all of this, combined with the undeniable style of the bike, look at all the colors, right? and the familiar thump of that single-cylinder engine. It adds up to a motorcycle that can nearly do it all and put a smile on your face as your one bike to rule them all. Your daily commuter on weekdays, and your cafe hopper, backroad explorer, and long-distance tourer on weekends. Of course, I said nearly do it all, because the Scram's main weakness, its potential deal breaker, remains the same. It's slow. This is still that same engine that just has no oomph whatsoever. I couldn't get past this Harley and Maxi scooter that were just chilling in the twisties because we were going uphill. Now on the highway, I was actually fine with cruising at 90 to 110 kilometers per hour. That's the speed limit anyway. But past 80, I was already getting that familiar buzz that left my fingers numb when I stopped the bike. So for now, with this 411 platform, there just seems to be no way of getting around that. And that's the price you're paying to get this very tractable, friendly engine. That said, being fast on a slow bike like this is also a function of how much you are willing to engage with the machine. I still felt pretty fast on it on an open road with light traffic. And it's not like it's so slow that you won't leave small scooters behind on open stretches and quickly run up against the speed limit. Unless you're riding full-time on highways or always going uphill, you'll find plenty of opportunities to catch up and be fast if you're willing to bring your skills to bear with this bike. And you know, looking back, I think me wanting a faster bike than the Himalayan before becoming a faster, safer rider, was partly a reflection of my lack of patience and a lack of practice. Aside from the lack of speed, which I can't change, there is one thing I would immediately change if I were to buy this bike: the stock tires. I found that every time the suspension bounced in a corner, the bike would get a little bit out of shape, and I found myself resorting to counterleaning off-road style for an added feeling of control. And my basis of comparison for this is my Interceptor on the Pirelli Scorpion Rally STRs and the YSS suspension. With the Scram being a Scrambler, I would also change to the Scorpion Rally STRs. I think these could make it better for my moderately aggressive riding style on and off-road, and I would consider the YSS shock and or fork upgrades for higher confidence to ride faster both on and off-road. But note that the stock suspension would still be the best for maximum comfort. Another disadvantage that occurred to me late is that, like the Himalayan, the pillion space on this, even on the new seat, is pretty limited. I would advise getting a top box with a backrest if you plan on doing long tours riding two up, so that your passenger can lean backward and reduce pressure on you. Now, on the oft-repeated complaint about the front brake, I think it's fine for the amount of power that this bike has, and I think it's forgiving for beginners. The brake was barely an issue during my time with the bike, except when I was stopping from triple-digit speeds. And apparently, like the gearbox, it's reported that the front brake actually improves significantly after a few thousand kilometers. So, in the end, the big question is, would I switch? Would I give up my hopelessly, endlessly tinkered custom Interceptor Scrambler for something smaller, lighter, much easier to ride off-road, and much cheaper to own, while still giving me the style that I felt the Himalayan lacked? That is a tough question. With how I ride now, and how my group likes to ride, the Scram is still too slow. But for pretty much everything else, I think this bike fits my riding style better. I love having street bike looks and agility while still having uncompromised adventure bike comfort. But for now, alas, one can't have everything. So I think there's only one thing to do. Wait for the Himalayan 450, reportedly releasing later this year, and see if that will do the trick. And further, see if they'll make a Scram out of that eventually. One more thing before we end, let's talk about current alternatives to the Scram 411 in roughly the same price range in the Philippine market. I think its most direct competition in being a retro bike that can be a great daily commuter and weekend scrambler is the Husqvarna Svartpilen 401, which I reviewed previously. The Svart at 325,000 Philippine pesos is just 10,000 pesos more expensive than the Scram, and it offers a lot. It's faster, lighter, and it has switchable ABS. However, it is taller, It's a lot stiffer in the Philippine spec without the adjustable suspension, and it's more expensive to maintain. It's a KTM after all, with the added complexity and expensive parts that come with it. Also, the Scram 411 will definitely have the upper hand off-road as it is built from a Himalayan, while the Svart is a road bike with some off-road styling. Honestly, it's hard to pick between the two. I prefer the character and versatility for touring of the Scram, while preferring the power and lightness of the Svart. Another strong contender is the Bristol Veloce 500 at 348,000 pesos. It's light, low, with great ground clearance at 190 millimeters. It has good power from the 471cc engine from the CB500X. It has more features including switchable ABS, tubeless spoked wheels, and even a single-sided swing arm. The handlebar on it is perfect for scrambling too. On paper, it's superior in almost every way. But honestly, riding it, I felt kind of uninspired with the whole plasticky build and the really jerky throttle. That's totally subjective, so I suggest you test ride one to see if you like it, because it's got all the features at a great price. Though, you should know it's held back in part by reportedly poor after sales. Going up the price range, a really promising option is the newly released CFMOTO 700 CLX Adventure version at around 400,000 pesos. I will definitely cover that in a future review. For 10,000 pesos more than the CLX and nearly 100,000 pesos more than the Scram 411, you can get Honda's brand new CL500 Scrambler based off of the Rebel CMX 500. It's a promising road-biased option, and it might be the right bike for many beginners. It's kind of basic compared to the Veloce and CLX for the price, but expect it to be supremely reliable and smooth. Personally, I don't really like this design, but with this proven refined engine and its relatively light weight of 190 kilos, it is going to be worth looking into. Then of course, you can do what I did, which is choose the Interceptor 650, which is a road bike but is often customized into a really nice scrambler, as I've done explained in the video above. You get good power, really good character, and awesome handling, but at the expense of a lot more weight. And hey, that's it! Man, I really had fun with this bike. Call me a Royal Enfield fanboy, but hey, there's a lot of us. It's a do-it-all bike with style, and you know, I hope beginners, like my past self, will give this bike a chance and allow themselves to grow on it. And of course, even better riders will find that there's so much to play with on this bike. Because pleasurable riding isn't all about top speed and acceleration. I'm telling you, this bike can become your gateway to nearly every manner of awesome ride XP. Thank you for watching, guys. Again, my name's Palabyab. I hope this was helpful, or at least fun to watch. Do leave a like if it was, and consider subscribing. So until the next, peace out, my friends.